Hey there everyone, AJ back again for the Mighty Gluestick channel. I make videos about Dungeons and Dragons lore full-time and have a collection of hundreds of monster ecology and strategy videos on my channel, including a complete A to Z list of all of the monsters found in the core monster manual for 5th edition. If you like what I do, please consider subscribing as I upload at least twice a week. We return to the Underdark today for a closer look at the history, ecology and society of the degenerate Derro race. We're going to get deeply nerdy in the deepest places in the worlds of Faerun and Greyhawk. They can be found all through the Underdark, not just under the continent of Faerun, through tunnels and deep caverns that stretch under mountain ranges and even oceans. The Derro have spread across the entire world of Toril, those who ventured willingly through planar portals, they've spread to many other planes and many other worlds across the multiverse. In Dungeons & Dragons, the Derro featured in the 1982 as part of the Lost Caverns of Sojanth adventure module. They were then reprinted in the second monster manual for 1st edition in 1983. They were part of the Greyhawk setting on the planet of Earth, or as Frank Menser pronounced it, Oeth. You can pronounce it here however you like. The Derro appeared in the Greyhawk ruins in 1990. They were part of the Flames of the Falcon in the same year, appeared in a box set 2 years later, and were again included in the Monstrous Manual in 1993. They popped up in the Dungeon Magazine adventure in issue number 81, where we discovered that mutant members of their race can have 4 arms. They could somehow be melded with Grimlocks, and some gross mutants had eye stalks. Now the Derro were one of the core races of the Underdark and appeared in the main monster manual for 3rd edition in 2000 and the revised 3.5 edition monster manual in 2003. They didn't get a detailed listing until the 3rd monster manual printed for 4th edition, and in 5th edition they again got skipped by the monster manual and we had to wait to see them in the pages of the adventure Out of the Abyss in 2015, and 2 years later finally they appeared in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes in 2018. I have to wonder, are the Derro falling out of favour with DMs and players? Let's see what we can learn about them, shall we? And see if we can increase their popularity somewhat. The Dwarves and Duergar have a very unflattering story of the origin of the Derro race included in their own mythologies. The Duergar believe that they are those of their own kind who were cursed and exiled by their god Lardagur for the insult of trying to forge living beings, just as their god had done when he created them. But Lardagur drove them insane and banished them into the wilderness below. Due to this belief, the Duergar believe the Derro are vermin, or worse, a living blasphemy against their creator god. The Dwarves believe the Derro were of their own kind as well, thus creations of Moradin and the Soulforge, but the Derro were those dwarves who loved the gods Derinka and Dinkarazan above all others in the pantheon. The twin children of some other gods other than Moradin and Birna Truesilver, I don't think it is known which lesser gods they were. Anyway, Dinkarazan is the Derro deity of vengeance. He's tall and gaunt, his blankly staring face is dominated by huge red eyes with pinpoint pupils. His long streaming hair changes texture, colour and appearance randomly. However, this is a major clue to the true origin of the Derro. Dinkarazan and Derinka are two of the ancient gods of the human Suloese race of the Greyhawk setting from the ancient Suel Empire, who, as a race, had an unusual number of people born with albinism. It's yet another human empire destroyed by a devastating magical mishap. Though they no longer worship the twin gods, the Derro, now far-flung across the plains, still keep the religion alive. I should also tell you that almost all Derro do not know their god Derinka ever had a twin brother. This knowledge is kept by the elder brains of the Illithid race, and we shall see why in just a moment. Dinkarazan's brother Derinka is even more powerful spellcaster god. They achieved apotheosis together, and together they explored the caverns of Ilsensine for the magical lore they would need to perfect their own newly formed race, the Derro. This was an accident though. They wanted to create a race of dwarves who had the qualities of the hill and mountain dwarves lacked, such as dexterity, speed, and more importantly, magical power. The story goes, the twin gods went deeper into the Underdark than any other dwarves had ever gone, into the deep caverns where ancient wonders and absolute horrors lurked. There they discovered a gigantic cavern thrumming with raw magical power and brimming with potent alien magical artifacts scattered around this floating, green glowing crystal sphere hovering just above the ground, and as they approached it, this huge spectral brain drifted up from it and surveyed them with cold, clinical detachment. They had just stumbled into the actual presence and looted the sanctum of Ilsensine, the god of the Illithids, who did not appreciate his secrets being pilfered by a pair of lesser dwarven powers. Well, whatever happened next Darinka betrayed his brother and took the race as his own, leaving Darinkazan imprisoned by Ilsenstein in the Abyss, where he thinks of nothing but vengeance, hating his brother and blaming the Derro for his suffering. He is kept in a prison of the Mad God on the 586th layer of the Abyss, a swirling vortex of air and gas with rings of stones flying randomly about, while he is constantly tormented by illusions of the things he most fears. He's bound to a stone throne and cannot move, though every 50 years or so he manages to create an avatar to stalk Derro communities and slay everything that moves. So if there ever were any Derro communities that got established, they have long since been destroyed and their society gets ripped apart every 50 years or so. You can find more info on Darinkazan in the book Monster Mythology, published in 1992. It's a fascinating read. And yes, it's quite possible to be a priest of this chained and furious god, as he is forced to act through agents on other planes of existence. Obviously, he doesn't grant powers to the members of the Derro race. The creation of the Derro was not an immediate or smooth process. There is a very, very good reason why Darinka is a god of cruelty. The god hid from the rest of the dwarven pantheon, moving from plane to plane, planet to planet, taking his Derro with him for further experimentation. The use of mysterious and wickedly powerful artifact resulted in screeds of mutations scattered across the multiverse. The Derro are thus one of the most diverse races. You could say that the Derro of Toril and those of Oerth share a name and basic shape, but they may have some very stark and disturbing differences that are clearly not natural in origin. It took many centuries of experiments before Darinka produced the first triumph in the form of the Derro savants. In Derro mythology, this was a wondrous act of divine creation by their god. The truth is far different. It was a random fluke in what was almost a hobby of vicious magical experimentation, one in which Darinka has never really lost a taste for. The Derro believe they were driven away by the dwarven gods, who are jealous of Darinka's prowess in creating them, and they must remain in the Underdark under the protection of their god. Their religion is basically mass Stockholm Syndrome gone wild. The savants act as the interpreters of Darinka's teachings, and their magical skills are indeed quite impressive, but unlike clerics, their magic is not divine, it is arcane. They are born sorcerers, basically. The savants have the spellcasting power of a 5th level spellcaster. Darinka is, as you would imagine, still to this day horribly betraying his own twin brother. Not a very nice god, but he is the Derro deity of magic, savants, knowledge, and cruelty. His symbol is a spiral of grey, black, and white, disturbingly similar to the symbol of the mad god Tharizdun himself. His magical knowledge is hugely empowered after his encounter with Ilsenstein, but still, Darinka is an unpleasant deity who will betray anyone for his own ends. When he dispatches avatars, it's normally for the sake of uncovering lost magic that he greedily acquires, or merely to torment others for his amusement. He cares little about what his followers choose to do. If he punishes them, it's usually as an act of random cruelty, rather than for any real purpose. But this is always justified by the Derro. They make some truly insane excuses for their abuse of God. That is the religious side of it. The true history of the Derro is a dark and grim echo of this myth. Long ago, the ancient human Suil Empire. Now, I won't go into great detail of the development of the Suluese race and culture, but it's pretty safe to say they were some evil bastards with factions convinced of their racial superiority, and they did some messed up stuff to their slaves in special camps. If you get what I'm alluding to, they were something of an allegory. So they took the dwarven and human slaves and bred them together like livestock, seeking to create a superior slave race with the best qualities of both. What they ended up with was the Derro. The religion of the Derro is actually the twisted echo of their creation by abuse of human slavers on another world, and their desperate escape and fear of the outside world. Their mutations and magical power resulted from them crawling into the lowest places where they could find in the Underdark to hide, seeking to hide from the world above, which had so brutally wounded them mentally and physically. And so the alien energies, the cruelty of mind flayers, and dangers and torments of the Underdark mutated and honed this race of beings that are far removed from their dwarven cousins, deeply broken by a history of cruelty, prone to lashing out against anyone and everything else, because really they hate and fear everything and just can't see a way out of their nightmare existence. Unlike the lawful Duergar, the Derro are a chaotic race, highly emotional, twitchy, and with short attention spans. They are still a subrace of dwarves, technically. augmented and twisted by ancient dark magics and the manipulations of the Mind Flayers. They have rough skin that is white with bluish undertone that usually appears as a dirty blue-grey, spotted with short tufts of tan yellow or white coarse hair. They have thick mops of hair on their head and usually some form of facial hair. They have an echo of their dwarven heritage in the way they style and pride themselves on their hair with highly ritualistic tribal patterns. The hair is straight and frequently braided or weaved. Their eyes are quite unlike a dwarf's, uniformly pale, often pale white or yellowish, and may appear to glow with a faint sickly yellow light, always lacking both iris and pupil. They are short and stocky like the dwarves, but more lean and wiry like the Duergar. They are shorter than either race though, so they didn't inherit any of the size of their human ancestors at all. Derro tribes are led by charismatic leaders, almost always the crazed sorcerer savants, who unite their tribes in acts of cruelty and drive them to make war on other tribes and other races. There is no permanent alliance possible with the Derro. Although they can live for up to 150 years old, they mature at the speed of humans and produce infants just as frequently, leading to a rapid population pressure build-up that can only be resolved through violence. To them, these purges make perfect sense and only serve to strengthen their race as their god, through the voice of his chosen savants, commands. Derro are a cruel race. They have a fundamental lack of empathy for other creatures, including their own kind. They love to inflict wounds that are horribly painful and disfiguring and keep their enemies off guard. So they use a hooked short spear, which is a martial melee weapon that deals 1d4 piercing damage, weighs 2 pounds and has the light weapon property, but it's not able to be used with one hand or be thrown. On a hit with this weapon, the wielder can forego dealing damage and attempt to trip the target instead, in which case the target must succeed on a DC 9 strength saving throw or fall prone. The DC is actually 8 plus the wielder's strength modifier plus the weapon wielder's proficiency bonus, but with the Duergar it's usually 9. The Darrow also use a light repeating crossbow fitted with a cartridge that can hold up to 6 crossbow bolts. This weapon is similar to a light crossbow except that it is half the range, so normally 40 and a long range of 160 feet. And doesn't have the loading property. It automatically reloads after firing until it runs out of ammunition. Reloading the cartridge takes an action. They just feed the bolts into the weapon, where they are pushed up by a simple bone spring arm. They are infamous for sneaking up and unleashing a hail of crossbow bolts on unsuspecting targets, such as sleeping adventurers, pinning them to the ground by their own sleeping blankets. They are also known for constructing extremely cruel traps that are designed to maim or kill those who set them off quite painfully. Their creative use of serrated blades, swinging and pressure-loaded mechanisms, spikes, slides and falling blocks is quite impressive. However, Darrow create no settlements of their own. Instead, they form isolated small enclaves in non-Darrow settlements throughout the Underdark, where they're treated as little more than vermin or slaves. Their own cutthroat politics prevent the Darrow from mounting any effective resistance against such exploitation, and I think at this point you can now understand why this broken race actually thinks that this is normal. They are vicious and feral slaves of their own culture and religion. Your average Darrow is small, chaotic, evil humanoid. They have leather armor for an armor class of 13, have 3d6 plus 3 or between 6 and 21 and have an average of 13 hit points. They move at 30 feet per round, have a strength of 9, dexterity of 14, constitution of 12, intelligence of 11, wisdom of 5, and charisma of 9. Plus 4 to stealth checks, 120-foot dark vision and passive perception of 7. Able to speak their own dialect of Dwarvish and Undercommon, all Darrow have advantage on saving throws against all spells and other magical effects, but they are fairly insane, which does give them a benefit of having advantage on all saving throws against being charmed or frightened. This can be quite disturbing for other races who interact with them. One second the Darrow is talking to them and seems almost friendly and sane, the next they start to spit curses and horrible threats of some imagined wrong or suspicion. They may become confused between their own desire to inflict horrible cruelty on others and the intentions of other beings around them. They hear voices, they see things, they mistake nightmares that they've had with things that actually happen to them. They occasionally see ethereal entities. They may momentarily see magical auras and emanation. They may overhear snatches of the surface thoughts of others and mistake them for their own thoughts. They will often feel like one of their limbs is not their own. They have horrible cravings for weird foods or sickening and depraved acts. They are, simply put, a race of severely disturbed little psychopaths. They have a +2 to hit with their hooked spear, or +4 to hit with their repeating crossbow. They usually have at least some sort of a sharpened shank hidden on their person. The spear trip attack requires DC 9 strength saving throw. Also, if they can get hold of some poison to use on their weapons, they will most certainly use it. All Derro have sunlight sensitivity, obviously, for being a race that lives in the deep Underdark, rolling all attacks and wisdom sight checks with disadvantage while in sunlight. They quite detest being on the surface and will not go up there unless they have to. It's basically the equivalent of me asking you to climb to the top of a mountain range, go up to Mount Everest and buy some milk. You're just like, why? Savants are much tougher individuals. They have an inherent affinity for arcane magic, as well as 11d6 plus 11, or between 17 and 72, with an average of 49 hit points. They have a charisma of 14 and a challenge rating of 3. Savants cast spells like a sorcerer, with a 5th level sorcerer, with +4 to hit and save DC of 12, based on their charisma bonus. They can also cast Acid Splash, Light, Mage Hand, Message and Ray of Frost at will. They have 4 first level spell slots and know how to cast Burning Hands, Chromatic Orb and Sleep. They have 3 level 2 slots and can cast Invisibility and Spider Climb, plus 2 level 3 spell slots and can cast either Blink or Lightning Bolt, though you should feel free to change this up a lot. Give them some wickedly cruel spells normally available to warlocks if you want. They are not like your average spellcaster, they are mutant sorcerers. So you may want Derro boss encounters to feature wild magic effects, and have Derro warriors appear that have some bizarre mutations, such as a tentacle for an arm or 2 heads like an Eton. One might have thick leathery skin like a Norca, or be able to shoot an eye beam like a Beholder. We know that 4-armed Derro are possible, so give them a bonus attack action with a light weapon or some such. Others might be able to latch on with a choke attack, or emit the piercing scream of a shrieker. You just never know with this species. Of course, their chaotic nature is nothing compared to the Gibberlings, but that's a subject for another video. I hope you learned something new as we uncovered the secrets of the Derro, and are encouraged to include them in your Underdark campaigns. They're a lot of fun to pitch against your players and can be used in a whole lot of different ways. Player characters who learn more about the true origins may even feel a conflicted sense of pity for them. Who knows? I leave it up to you to craft your own stories. Please hit the like button if you made it this far, subscribe if you like what I do, check out my Patreon for some exclusive content, all the full scripts for these videos, check out my merchandise, and there's a link down below to D&D WoW Dice where you can get a 15% discount on a purchase with the use of the glue stick code word. Wear your geek with pride, and as always, thanks for listening, and I'll be back with more for you very soon.